Hey, thanks for coming back to Sermon Notes. I'm Amy Chochavartier, and
My name is Garrett Gregory.
we have Aaron Bryant with us.
Hey, gang.
We have already been laughing.
Yes,
so
we have.
Anyway,
Yes, we have.
I was trying to do that strong without a giggle, but you are at Ave South.
Last I checked.
You are.
The church at Avenue South.
Yes, that's exciting.
This
And
year, I hear it's your favorite campus.
it is this week.
Okay,
Yes,
all right,
It
all right.
is this week, and yours as well, right?
It's this week. It's the best.
That's right.
100%. How
There
many
you go.
years now, Ave South?
8 years. 8 years at Avenue South. We
Crazy.
planted. First Sunday was in September of 2014. So yeah. I mean, I'm not the greatest at math, but I'm pretty sure that's 8 years. So
That is.
Yeah.
What? Oh, I am wearing sometimes I forget this is on.
It's up.
You know?
It's up there.
It's
not
on, but it's on.
It's on my head.
Yeah.
On your
That's what
head.
I mean. I think if I turn on. Anyway, this is our Christmas edition. We thought we would have a little bit more fun.
Okay.
Jolly.
I love it.
It's now
Jolly.
happening.
Yeah.
Is it on now?
It is.
This is our Christmas edition as opposed to other ones.
No,
Mark,
like
Christmas.
just a couple of weeks of Christmas,
every day's Christmas.
There it is.
Treat every day. Like
Guys, I'm just
Christmas.
serving these
Thank
up
you.
to you. Come on. I'm
We
just
love
a
it.
There
content
it
generator.
is. So we're gonna have fun with a couple
absolutely.
of Christmas themed things. I think the last time that we had you on, we got a little bit deep. What was it? We did. It was.
Every other pastor
Arcane.
was getting questions like, do you like Italian food or do you like this kind of food? And I sat down and you were like, would you have rather seen Moses part the Red Sea or the incarnation of Christ? And
Yeah.
it was like, what the heck? Like,
It's a little bit deeper.
yeah, I'm going to, you can't go wrong, but also you're going to be wrong on one of those. So
It's true.
So what do we got today?
Well, this one's fun. So we have some slides. It's called Two Kinds of People, Christmas edition.
if you
Here
hadn't
we
told me
go.
that, I would have never known.
Two kinds of people. So I'm just gonna. You've got some too, right? You
There's two kinds of people in this
We'll just roll
world.
with
We'll
it.
just go back and
Yeah,
forth.
you want to start us? And I'll
Sure,
just
sure.
fill in.
Okay. So it's gonna. Here's the rules. You've heard the phrase. There are two kinds of people in the world, and now you get to see which one you are. I think you probably already know what kind of person you are, but we're gonna put up two different slides.
You ever seen What About Bob? You ever seen that movie? It says there's
Yeah.
two kinds of people in the world: those who like Neil Diamond and those who don't. So
There you
that's
go.
got
Do
to
you
be our
like Neil
categories.
Diamond or
oh,
not?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Sweet
Yeah.
Caroline, come on.
Okay, so here
It's a classic.
this is a different slide than you have. So
We're off to a rip roaring
there
start,
it is.
gang.
Are you the person who would choose to give a gift card or give a present?
To give,
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving. Give a present.
Okay.
I think lots of people prefer to get the gift card because you can use it a number of ways, but I think it shows that you put a little intentionality behind picking out a gift.
I like it.
something tangible under the Christmas tree.
Okay, and then what would you rather receive? A gift card or
I'm probably going to want a gift card. I'm going to give people what I wouldn't want, right? Doesn't that make sense?
Straight cash.
For sure.
I love it. Okay.
Straight cash, homie.
That's right. All right. Decorate before Thanksgiving or post Thanksgiving?
Before,
Okay.
and this year we were decorated before Halloween. So we
Whoa.
just went all
go.
in. Let's go. So these people are like, yeah, we got the tree up before Thanksgiving. I'm like, step off, people. Like, get out of here with that. Like,
Is that so? Growing up, was that something that your family did, or is that something Amy's family did, or is that together?
No.
We're going to kick this thing off early.
no, I don't even know what it was. We had to, I think it was we had to go up in the attic to get something.
Oh.
And the only time I see our Christmas stuff is I'm like,
I'm
hey,
here.
and by the way, there's wise men and a nativity up here, and let's do
Bring
this.
them down.
So in fairness, the Christmas tree has been up for 2 months, but I just this weekend put up the nativity on the front lawn.
Oh.
We're having some technical difficulties because baby Jesus is not lit yet.
Listen.
And maybe that's intentional. I don't know. But that bulb didn't come back on this year. So we got to pray hard on that one.
I've had some nativity struggles recently too, but I have put, the lights that you pop on, I think they're called like hockey puck lights. Yeah, have you seen
Yeah,
those?
that you put under
Yeah.
a cabinet or something?
Yes,
You
I
wanna
put those in my
inside?
nativity. I did.
Okay.
I lit them up with it.
Well,
I got
full
rid of
confession,
the wires.
I haven't really done a lot of hard work to figure out what's wrong. So it may just be a new bulb, but if not,
It
I'm going to go
is.
those hockey puck
I'm just
lights.
saying.
There should be like
And
a
you do a remote
subculture of
control
support
with it.
groups for people that have had trouble with their Christmas lights.
Be so good.
Right.
We could start it.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Let's
there
do
it
it.
is.
Wednesday nights here at the church.
Boom.
Garrett. Ooh, I feel
I'm
like
in.
this one's yours. I'm going to leave
What's
that
your-
one for you.
Okay. Movies. Buddy the Elf, which is really called Elf.
Yeah.
Or It's a Wonderful Life. Classic or the modern classic?
I'm going to go with Elf on these choices, but I will take like A Wonderful Life. Just so. But my daughter and I, we watch every year. We watch White Christmas.
It's the best.
And I have to be honest with you. Like I end up falling asleep towards the end. She's like, Dad, this is the year you're going to stay awake for the whole thing. But she loves her some Bing Crosby, and so that's the classic that we love. But I'll go with Elf on this. I love that store manager in Elf who's like super suspicious. He's like, it looks good. It looks too good. He's like
6-inch ribbon girls.
right, and so he's like all on edge. Like so, yeah, I like that movie.
It's awesome.
I went and saw Elf. Do you remember who I went and saw Elf with?
No,
Like when it came out originally?
Yes.
In the theater.
In a
No.
theater with your wife
Are you
and
serious?
Tanya Strother.
No
we
way.
actually skipped a women's event to go to
Yeah, you did.
Elf. Yeah.
Really?
I did not know that, but that's awesome.
Yes.
What year do you think that was? I don't remember when Elf was
It
released.
would have been 20 years ago.
2002.
Has that movie been out 20 years?
Get some fact
25?
checking in the back.
2003, November 7th.
Oh my gosh,
That can't be right.
It can't be right.
Yeah, she's right.
2003. Maybe.
Wikipedia.
Anyway.
I bet you're
That
right.
It
is
is.
crazy.
Because I do think
Yeah.
I think it was my junior year of college that it came out. I think that's probably pretty fair.
Okay.
I think that's about right. Saw it at the theater at Green Hills Mall.
Green
Wow.
Hills Mall.
There it
I
is.
saw A Christmas Story, 1983, I think it was, Hickory Hollow Mall with my family.
Legend.
Wow.
Saw it on the big screen. I'm kind of over the 24 hours of it, that comes on around Christmas, but I
Yep.
saw it on the big screen.
It's just deceptively long to me. It's a Wonderful Life. I respect it. It's so long.
That's
So
like,
long.
all due respect and all, but I'm about to trash whatever topic we're talking about. You just trashed It's a Wonderful Life.
Strong word. White Christmas, I do love it. It is also long, but I really do like it.
What do you like about White Christmas?
I like Bing. He's my favorite.
Danny Kaye gets so overshadowed, man.
100% he does.
know?
And probably rightly so. But Bing is Bing. And it's just, that's the Christmas guy. That's just, when I think of Christmas or hear like Christmas in my head sounding like, it's always his voice. I don't know why.
Okay.
Amazing. He also has a great name, though. He has a great name. Okay,
Yep.
last question. So, are you a good rapper? WRAPPER.
Like, what up, yo?
Both and.
What up?
We need responses on both.
Or are you like a bad rapper? I pointed to the wrong one. Or do you know how to rap a present? Like,
I
is
know
that-
how to rap presents.
mean,
I'd be
well-
concerned about myself if I didn't at some
I'm
point.
not
but
good at that.
but the tape always shows.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The people who wrap presents and they hide it and it looks perfect, and now I'm a little bit hesitant to open it. Have
Oh.
you ever done this? Somebody's given you something that's so nicely wrapped that you carefully take it off and you reuse that wrapping paper the next year because they could wrap so much better than you could.
That's awesome.
I'm guilty.
That's awesome. No,
Little
I'm a gift
Christmas
bagger.
hack, little gift wrapping hack there.
That's amazing.
My grandmother would
I
get
heard
really
Bing
upset
Crosby
with
did
us
that.
about that. Bing did that. My grandmother did
Bing.
that. Her name was Sweetie. And whenever we'd unwrap her gifts, she would ask for us to lay it nicely on the floor and then she would take it all home.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. It's real.
Really? Okay.
I'm gonna take that
Resourceful.
officially
Yeah.
as we talk about a sermon.
Sweetie the legend. All right, let's move on.
So.
Okay, let's get real.
Yay!
Yes,
That was
great
fun,
question.
right? Good times.
Most fun I've had in years.
Beats partying the Red Sea. Nothing beats
Burning
that.
bush, gift wrapping.
All right. I sticky noted your sermon. So
you
good.
actually watched my sermon.
I did,
Wow,
and I
thank
took
you.
notes.
Daryl
on
makes sense.
So
sticky
you're
notes.
the one. Awesome.
I'm the one.
Thank you.
I'm the one.
Cool.
I love this. There were so many different quotes that I'm going to put on a sticker, not a sticky note. This one, we're going to just
Yeah,
jump in.
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
good? Where do you look where you can't find peace? And you said, look to God. I
Yeah.
did not remember or that Isaiah's name is what?
The Lord is salvation.
Yes, I totally forgot that. So
Yeah, so I mean, Isaiah's
That's
showing up at a time where like he is talking to a group of people who are they're unsettled. Their future looks pretty daunting. They can tell cultural events are kind of closing in on them, and it's not good.
yeah.
And the Lord raises up a prophet that when he shows up, his name literally means like God saves people. So even
good.
before he says anything that we read in our Bible, it's like, hello,
Hey, yeah.
So he's just, so when we talk about peace, he's just reminding them like, whatever's going on, It's God who saves. It's God who provides. Like, look to him. And so I love that about who he is and about his calling, for sure. And I do think, so I have heard, I think several people throughout the years have said to me something like, do you really think the Bible is relevant, like in 2022?
Yeah.
Like, it's so archaic, or is it really applicable to now? And so, man, the more you read the Bible, I think we hurt ourselves when we're not familiar with Scripture and don't read it, because it may have been hundreds or, almost 2,500 years ago that this took place. You don't have to prop God's word up. It's always living and active. It is so relevant if we would just read it and look at it. And that's the first thing you get out of who he was and what his calling was.
Yeah, and I just jumped in with my sticky notes. I didn't even really get a chance to set this up. You did great, though. But we're in a new sermon series.
Yes.
So we just moved out of Habakkuk. What is the name of this sermon series? I know that we talked about peace yesterday, but is it just... I can't remember.
The best Christmas ever, I think
that's what it was.
I think it's our Advent series, but I think that's around it.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked about peace yesterday, which was really, I loved hearing it on our campus. I loved what you talked about. It was really encouraging to me. So I'm just taking a personal moment.
Yeah.
But you talked about the difference between looking inward versus looking upward when people are trying to find peace. And so then I jumped into Isaiah and his name. I love that you said that when the prophet comes, he just is a good reminder that, look up, right? And I don't know that people know that your son is named, one of them is named Isaiah.
Yeah, our middle child is named Isaiah after this prophet.
Okay.
Because his ministry and his name literally means the Lord saves. And so therefore we wanted, names are unique and they're intentional. And so we wanted him as best he could to always hear the sound of the Lord's voice and to respond to it at some point for salvation, but then to spend his life, whether he is ever in ministry or he is an accountant or an engineer or a school teacher, to proclaim the Lord saves. Just like his namesake. I will tell you, it's pretty scary though. One time I walked in, we gave for Christmas, speaking of Christmas, Silas is named after Acts 16, Paul and Silas in prison, calling on the name of the Lord. And we had given the boys like a little play school, like carpenter set.
Yeah.
And I walked in the den one day and Silas was trying to saw Isaiah. And so I don't know if you know your scripture in Hebrews 11, and like some were sawed in half for their faith. And that's what we believe happened to the prophet Isaiah. It's like, guys, it's getting real in here. Like, y'all got to cut that out.
Please.
So you got to be careful about those names when you pick them out, speaking that prophetic word over
amazing.
him. But he's named after this prophet. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, for sure.
So back to the original question we were looking at is, why do you think people do look inward when they're looking for peace instead of looking upward, looking to Jesus as salvation?
I think it's natural in our flesh to just look at every alternative other than God.
Yeah.
I do think that's part of the enemy's control and his influence over the world and all of creation. Like he's got certain ability to distract us and to feed our flesh. And I think because we don't naturally wake up gravitating towards the Lord. You have to fight for those rhythms, spiritual disciplines, cultivating, like hearing his voice in Scripture, praying to him, and then listening for his response. So therefore, when we don't do those things that you hear, like Mike at the Brentwood campus or me at our campus, when we don't do just the basic fundamentals, when everything hits the fan and we need peace, we need settledness, we usually don't look to God first. Yeah. We look inward. And the reason I shared that yesterday was Ahaz, who's the king of Judah, that Isaiah was sent to prophesy to, and obviously the people of Judah, he's got the Assyrians kind of banging on the door, wanting to come in, and instead of going to God, that's what the kings were supposed to do on behalf of the people. Go to God, here's what God says, let's obey God. He kind of looks inward like, well, I tell you what sounds like a better plan. I'll go to Assyria myself and I'll cut a deal with them. And, there's Isaiah like, here's what God has said. Do you want to trust him? And Ahaz, is like, I'm just going to do what I think is best. And that's echoes of the Garden of Eden. Yep. Adam and Eve didn't shake their fist in God's face. And most of us today, we don't do that. Like, God, I want to just completely rebel against your plan. But we default to, no, it seems better. Like Proverbs says, there's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it can lead to your harm or your destruction. And he decides to look inward for his help, for his provision, and ultimately for his peace. And it didn't play out like what he thought.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit about what it sounds like in so many ways. Habakkuk has echoes of this. Isaiah has when you read through 11:6-9, and I remember you reading it to the congregation, listening to that. When I first read those verses, I'm like, why is he talking about the wolf here with the sheep? And there's all these compare, contrast deals. And I had no clue in my history of trying to read the Bible and learning about Jesus that points to peace, and it points to Eden, which existed and will exist again. And just even the shoot and the stump, and unpacking those terms and what they do. How do you in your own life, when we talk about looking upward and not inward, when did that rhythm best get maybe installed for you? Like, was it college? Okay, here's what I'm going to try to do. These spiritual rhythms you mentioned. If you've got somebody that comes to you and go, okay, how do I best do this? How do I install these practices of looking up? Because the kings in the Old Testament were terrible at it. I tend, if I'm not careful, to be terrible at this. And I think if we've learned anything from Habakkuk, for the last 3 weeks, and now Isaiah, we see this theme. How do we course correct and not fall into the same trap?
To answer your question, it was seminary. I was a young 20-something. I had some great godly professors and teachers. These men and women challenged me to own my faith. Yep. In ways that I assumed and believed. What I do believe growing up was healthy doctrine, like it was accurate doctrine, and I believe proper theology, but a lot of that was because my pastor, whom I trusted, had informed and shaped that. My parents had informed and shaped that, well-intended to point me towards God, but I reached a point where they pushed me, do you believe these things because God has formed and shaped that in you, or just because it's been handed down to you? Yeah. So the best way to say that is it was in those early 20s in seminary, particularly, where I owned my faith. And that included spiritual disciplines, listening for the voice of the Lord, like talking to him. Of course, scripture intake, like learning how to have a steady diet of reading scripture and how to do that, and not like give up on a Bible reading plan come February in Leviticus, right? Where Bible reading plans go to die. Like, it was some of that. So that's where that got formed and shaped in me. But I will tell you, for me now as a grown man, like it starts with, man, I'm a sinner in need of God's grace. Yep. I'm a sinner. So like being mindful, not like talking like negatively to ourselves about like you're a worthless, terrible person. Like that's not what we're about as pastors, as churches. But when we have a healthy awareness, like where we would be without God every day of our lives, I think you're more likely to say, I'm in need of you. I'm in need of you every hour. Yep. So when there's something that comes up, Christmas time or elsewhere during the year, I need peace, I need wisdom, I need counsel. It ain't in me, like I'm going to go. So it was formed and shaped in those seminary years. But I think throughout the last several years since then, it's like this constant awareness of who I am without Christ, and I have a desperate need for him.
To that, say you're looking upward, not inward. What would you say God promises us for those who look upward? What's his promise to us in that moment if we choose to look to him instead of ourselves?
Well, the first thing I think of is like an intimacy and a close fellowship with him, right? The thing that he promises all throughout the Old Testament, and it's in lots of different passages, is that I'll never leave you or forsake you. So what does he promise us? He gives us his peace, and obviously that comes through the person of Jesus Christ. Yep. We place our faith in him. There's an indwelling, and so the peace of Christ dwells in us. It's there. However, you feel that the right word is not it gets activated, but you feel the Lord's presence very palpably, right? An intimacy and a closeness of fellowship. And you'll hear people talk about, I hear, just as a pastor in my experience, I hear people talk about the closeness and the peace that comes actually when they're going through hardship, more than when they're on top of the world, right? And so like when people will go through a diagnosis or, family dynamics, they're like, oh, what are you up to? Like there's a dependency, there's a sweetness, there's a fellowship. So I think God promises and delivers himself. Yep. I would like to say we all are good with that. Like that's all I want. Yeah. We tend to look for, so what is the strategy? Yeah. What's the answer for the first quarter of 2023? Like, and how will my marriage progress? Or like, what about my kids and their decisions? And he often doesn't do that. I think it's sometimes because then we wouldn't trust him. Yep. We'd go back to doing it ourselves. But also to say like, is it good enough just to have me? Yeah. And he gives us himself. And of course, there's plenty of passages about the peace of Christ, which passes all understanding, but that's where it is.
Yeah, we don't go to Jesus to get stuff. We go to Jesus to get Jesus and being cool with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a healthy part of like when you have the peace of Christ, then like practically applying that. How do you, when you're working through like if you get, let's say you got 2 job offers and you're like, I don't want to make the wrong decision. I need to pray about this. Sure, there are some practical things that you might need counsel from a mentor or a teacher or a pastor. And we encourage everybody in our congregation, like we expect and we ask everybody to be in a Bible reading group, a life group, because there are some venues and some places where like this is best fleshed out among mentors, among other mentors and peers. But it starts with you and Jesus. Like you and Jesus and wanting more of him and being content that like that is enough.
Cool.
Good. Okay. Side note, the story of you and was it Silas? No. Yeah, it was Silas.
Yeah, our 17-year-old.
And so can you share that? I was cracking up. I really thought the bad stuff was happening. I was like, oh no.
So we were talking, obviously the sermon is about like, Christ provides peace in our lives. And I just illustrated like, maybe there's something going on in your life. It's like, why can't things just work out like they're supposed to? And so this past week, Amy and I had traveled to Alabama last Wednesday, put about 500 and some odd miles on the car, laying her grandmother to rest. And so we get back, it's late, and I realized I remembered that I had promised Silas I would take him to Chattanooga the next day, and I would take him to an event that started, he needed to be there like at 7 in the morning. And so we just had the idea, what if we went, about almost a little over halfway and stayed at my grandmother's house? And my grandmother's no longer there, but what if we stayed at her house? It's still in the family. And my dad said, sure. And so I got the keys from him and I went down, and the side door to my grandmother's house the storm door has always been unlocked. And so we get there after a long day, an emotional day with family, probably 700 miles driving at this point. It's 11 o'clock at night. It's like 29 degrees outside and the side door is locked. I pull up in this town of maybe 1,500 people, and it's so quiet. I mean, you can hear. Yeah, it's like a neighborhood. It's an old southern town in northeast Alabama, and like you can hear trains coming through. You can hear if there is any noise out there, you can hear it from miles away because like crystal clear through the night. 11 o'clock at night. We don't live there. We don't frequent there much. And the door won't unlock. And so I walk around the house and a dog starts barking. And of course it did. I'm a big guy. Yeah. It's a little awkward and snooping around in the dark, and that won't work. And so I'm just all the way around. And when I finally get there, I'm trying to get that side door open. Like maybe if I just, work with it a little bit, it'll open, and it's rattling and this dog starts barking, and all of a sudden the blue lights come on. Like the blue lights come on, and all I need to do is I just put my hands in the air like I am going to jail with my 17-year-old sitting in the car because I'm breaking into my grandmother's house who no longer lives there. And this is like total Shadesville.
Amazing.
And what it was in this town of maybe 1,500, a police officer I think had pulled over somebody for speeding. And what are the odds in the whole little tiny town pulled that person over in my grandmother's front yard?
At the exact moment.
So it went from I'm going to jail for breaking into my grandmother's house to he just drove off. And I just illustrated I think telling a story like that brings a little bit of levity. I said, why can't plans just work out like they're supposed to? We had a plan, it didn't work out, and we never did get to stay there. I drove up the road and stayed at like a Quality Inn, which I would have rather spent $110 some other way.
Right.
But I think that brings levity when you're talking about like, what about our marriages? Mm-hmm. Those of us that said I do, and you're like 10 years in, 5 years in, you're like, it's hard. Yeah. We're not communicating well, and like this, why can't it just work out like we saw in our mind's eye?
Right.
So maybe that helps us kind of get there on those heavy moments. And what if it is with a kid and your child is struggling emotionally or mentally or academically, and you're like, what is going on? Why can't this we just want to have a family and enjoy the American dream. Like, why isn't this playing out? Yeah. And so I was just illustrating like everybody can resonate with that. And so could the people of Isaiah's day. Yeah. The people in Judah were dealing with the same thing. That's another reason why I think Scripture's so relevant. If we'll read these stories and believe the truth of God from them, like they apply to today. That's
good. I love it. And so when you were talking about that and just thinking through, for us as Christians, I mean, we lose... I mean, it's hard to maintain hope in the midst of everything that's going on. Also, I mean, we're waiting for the second advent as well. Mm-hmm. So what are some ways as Christ followers that we can maintain hope in the midst of the second coming,
It's a great question. I'll go back to our text from yesterday since we're talking about Isaiah chapter 11. Garrett, you mentioned verses 6-9. And when Isaiah shows up, he prophesies like things are going to be bad. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but it will get better. And there's a day coming where the creation, animals themselves will flourish and they won't harm one another and everything will be peaceful and humanity will flourish. He puts in front of them, like, you may have forgotten this, but you need to be reminded of what you already know. Like, God is faithful. He will bring about human flourishing for those who are in relationship with him and for all of creation like he intended. Nothing will thwart that. So how do we find hope? We remind ourselves of the promises God has already made to us. So, hope is like an anchor for the soul, it talks about in the New Testament. And so I think we reread, we hold on to passages like Isaiah 11, 6 through 9. Like Isaiah 11, 6 through 9 is everyone, it's the three of us. It's going to be our reality one day.
Yeah.
And it's going to be for our congregants who are followers of Jesus. Like, that will be experienced. And that gives me hope.
Yep.
And I got things I'm praying for my marriage. I got things we're working through with our kids. Or, we've had one of those seasons where we've had family members, a couple of them, pass away within the last month. So pastors aren't, immune to the things that anybody else is dealing with. But I, too, go to those passages, and it fills me with hope, and that sustains me.
Yep.
I think sometimes we want more.
Yeah.
Again, going back to okay, that sustains me. That gives me comfort. What else, Lord?
Right.
What if he's like,
That's
just look at who I am?
Yeah.
That whole text is like, the first three verses is God's fitness as God, like as the Savior, as Jesus, his fitness, his resume for like, there's nobody like him.
Yeah.
And then this is his character, verses, 4 through, I think it is 4 and 5. This is his character. And then this is what his rule looks like in 6 through 9. And when you read those verses in that context, there's nobody like Jesus. There's nobody like Jesus. And maybe that's what I need to hold on to today that gives me hope, even with the world swirling around me. And that's what Isaiah was calling the people to do.
Yep.
that's good.
The contrast in the earthly kingdom of Assyria, you mentioned Ahaz,
Yeah.
contrasted with here's what the heavenly kingdom is going to look like. I'm thankful. I'm almost a thirst for that time when, okay, this is all going to be made right at no more death, no more divorce, no more sin, no more arguing, none of this stuff that we see that we're just weighed down with. You talk a lot, and obviously this talk, we're talking a lot about peace. It's not the absence of conflict.
Right.
If it's not the absence of conflict, what would your argument be? What is it if it's not the absence of conflict?
I make that statement because I don't want anyone to feel like, okay, I come to Christ and it will be so peaceful.
Yep.
I have met people that have come to faith in Jesus and thought, not necessarily that it'd be blissful, but it would significantly reduce the challenges, the obstacles they would face. So we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver on the kingdom, right? We don't want to misrepresent the Lord. So that's why I would make statements like, so it's not the absence of hardship. I think what happens is it's not that because we're in Christ, we experience any less trouble or strife. I mean, Jesus said, in this world, you will have much trouble,
Yep.
but take heart in me, for I've overcome the world. I think what we forget is it's a beautiful, but it is a broken world. And to your point, like I pray with my family and I pray like, amen, come Lord Jesus. I pray that nearly every day. I'm ready for you to, second advent, come on.
Yeah.
Unleash your eternal, never-ending kingdom. And so I think that's something that we should pray every day. I do. But I also believe it's not that there's any less trouble or hardship, but we are more equipped to respond because we know to call to Jesus. And I'd go back to the same thing. I don't even think in this podcast we need to give a whole bunch of practical, like teasing it out, other than like, just go back to him, ask for more of him, be my peace, remind me of who you are. Like Isaiah 9:6, wonderful counselor, mighty God, Prince of Peace. What does he give us in those moments? What peace can we find? I think that's why Paul talked about to the church in Colossae, chapter 1, verse 20. He's like, in him all things hold together. And Paul was going to be beaten. He's going to be arrested. He's going to lose his life as a martyr for the gospel. So it didn't eliminate those. But he said, there is a God, and his name is Jesus, and he protects me, and he provides for me. And the worst thing you can do is take my life and send me home to be with him. And I'm good with that. I wish I could say that every day. I wish we all could say that. But he was fully resting in him. I think Colossians chapter 1 is a really nice secondary text to complement what we all read yesterday in Isaiah 11.
Cool.
Good. Okay, so as we're closing out this time, I was just thinking about this. This is just off script a little bit, but one of the quotes I sticky noted as well is you were talking about when they cut down all the, they just kind of mowed down the image of the stumps, right? Can you speak to that? I'm not going to say that as well, but just the image of stumps. Why was that there? You talked about that a little bit.
So obviously prophets, Isaiah, talked about Habakkuk, minor, major. Prophets use symbols and they use imagery to kind of tell, here's what's going to unfold. And Assyria, the big bad bully knocking on the door of God's people's, living and their relationships, when they came in, Isaiah's like, look, they're coming. And the reason this is happening is because you won't look to God.
Yep.
You've refused to do what he says. And so he's going to give you what you wanted, which is, for the most part, life without his wisdom and his provision. And so this is where it leads. And when the Assyrians came in, if you read chapter 10 of Isaiah and then chapter 6 as well, it talks about the imagery of like when the big bad bully comes in, they're just going to devastate all of Judah.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll look like if you've ever seen a field where like evergreen trees have been just lopped off and sold for timber and they don't replant it. There's stumps, maybe 1-2 feet high everywhere. So that it's not pretty. It doesn't speak of anything growing or like future promise, right? And so he's like, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like this, and that's the best imagery I know to paint for you. This is what's going to happen. So if he stopped there, like that's the worst story ever, right?
I know. And you even said this. It was the quote of living in a land of lopped off trees. I love that. I love that imagery. And so I feel like even at Christmas time, we have these trees that are lopped off, right? Well, we don't have the stumps. We have the other part. But I just wonder if people are feeling that at Christmas right now, that they may be feeling like they're living in a land of lopped off trees. And so the end of that part is talking about a tender shoot that comes out of the stump, and that God is he's always working, right? And so my question for you as we kind of end this is, how are you, because it's kind of an Isaiah moment of being able to say, okay, the Lord is salvation, and how oftentimes looking back to see how he's already been at work. So my question is, how have you seen at the Church of Avenue South or even in the Bryant family ways that God has been at work that encourages you that he is constantly at work, even if you have a land of lopped off trees,
You don't have enough time on the podcast for me to tell how God has been so exceedingly good and generous to me in my professional and my personal life. But I will just simply say, as I look back, and if I opened up my journals for you and where me and the Lord have wrestled together and I've pleaded with him and I've also thanked him, I will tell you, God is always at work in the stump.
Yeah.
Even when you can't see it, when you don't feel it, when you don't believe it, our God, Yahweh, is always at work in the stump. And so that imagery from Isaiah, and if you feel like you're living in a land of lopped off trees, and let's talk about personal, if there's a person listening right now and you feel like your life is like a stump, it was supposed to grow up and be fruitful and successful, and you feel like it's not, and it's been hindered or impeded in some way, if you will invite the God of the universe, his name is Jesus, if you will invite him into your life and you will allow him, because he loves you best and knows you most, if you will let him have authority, and that means submitting to him, if you will let him lead and you follow, that's what a disciple is, somebody who knows Jesus and follows him, he will begin to bring about that peace we talked about. He will begin to bring about transformation. And so he's always at work in the stump of your life. And for me, looking back on my life, I've learned that when moments where I was at rock bottom or moments where I didn't know what to do next, he was always at work. And I do believe that spiritual discipline of journaling or capturing or a way to remember. When you cease to remember the goodness of God, you start to slowly but surely walk further away from him. He is always at work in the stump. And the greatest example of that is somebody's like, yeah, I want to believe that's true for my life, but Isaiah 11:1, Isaiah said, the imagery is going to be like a field of stumps, but even in the midst of it, God is so good to his people, and he's so good to us, that he will be at work. And out of one of the stumps, the stump or the root of Jesse, which was David's father, which the Davidic line comes down through Jesus, there will come a tender shoot, that God was pointing, even through the prophet Isaiah, towards Jesus' arrival.
Yep.
He's coming. And so today we're like, he's coming again. Look to Jesus. So I love that he is always working in the stump. The question is, do we have the courage? Because it's very vulnerable for somebody to, okay, I'm going to yield control of my life to a God that I cannot see. Yep. And it's impossible to please him without faith. I realize what we're asking people to do. I'm hoping that they will look, Garrett, at you, Amy Jo, at you, me, and say, like, those men and women aren't perfect, but there's got to be something. They all say Jesus is the answer. And that if they're willing to step out in faith and trust him, they will find what we've discovered in him, which is the peace of Christ, which passes all understanding. And you're right, Amy Jo. So many of our friends, co-workers, loved ones, others in our community, neighbors, need that peace. So I pray that they would realize God's always at work, and they can have as much of Jesus as they want.
That's good.
That's great. This passage is good. It's rich. I'm thankful.
They all are, for sure.
They all are.
But isn't it neat? You know, you think of Christmas, and how many churches have we been in that the sermon series is about baby Jesus' arrival, the wise men coming to present gifts. And so we've done those sermon series, but to look at the prophet Isaiah over, the next several weeks, it's nearly 700 years in advance saying this is exactly what the Christ is going to look like. And when Jesus arrives, he checks all the boxes. Yep. I hope for the person who's like, well, what about the donkeys and what about the stable? I hope they'll learn something new about God's goodness to his people in the sermon series. Yeah. Yep. Hundreds of years before, he's like, I'm looking out for you guys. Yeah. Because here's what I'm going to do for you before you even knew to ask for it.
Yep.
That's good.
I love it. Merry Christmas, brother. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Merry Christmas to y'all. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Watching us on here, hit the subscribe button. We'll go from there. Merry Christmas to you, wherever you're watching from, and keep going with us on this journey. We'll be back next week, and can't wait to see it. Merry Christmas. Have a great day.